All right, we're back with more NFL coverage, and in this one, I'll be going through rounds 2 and 3 of the NFL draft and just give my own thoughts on it. So, to get right into it, starting off with a couple things that stand out in back-to-back picks here, you had the Texans go after Caden McDonald, the defensive tackle from Ohio State, and the Giants get Colton Hood, the corner from Tennessee. Both of those are some solid additions to defenses that are going in completely different directions, to be completely honest with you. The Texans, of course, they already had Tommy Togiai, and their secondary option is Sheldon Rankins, who has gotten a lot of burn recently and is still a good run stopper. However, he isn't getting any younger. He's probably closer to being out of the NFL and is a very seasoned veteran. So this is a solid way for the Texans to, one, get their hands on him for much cheaper. They won't have to pay him as much on his rookie contract as compared to if he was a first rounder. And all in all, you have McDonald, who himself is a great run stopper, now jamming up the middle of that football field for any ball carrier that tries to run anywhere towards him. You saw how he swallowed up the one Illinois running back in that game. And that was just a pattern for him all season long with the sheer size that he possesses deep on the interior of that defensive line. So the Texans just add another young, promising rookie from The Ohio State to an already stout defense, looking to somehow top and replicate what they did last season. They would just hope that it results in them progressing much further in the playoffs and potentially contending for a Super Bowl. That is the next step for them at this point. As for the Giants getting Colton Hood, I do like it. It's pretty sneaky to consider that this was a player being mocked in the first round of this draft by many people. A guy who had also arguably gotten some mentions as a corner that could surprise people as one of the best in this draft from Tennessee, alongside Jermont McCoy. Of course, in 2024, he was more of a secondary option, but with McCoy's injury, he stepped into that number one corner role in 2025, and he had a stellar season. So he's coming off of that, entering this NFL draft, and that does show a lot of promise for some teams. The Giants were in desperate need of a corner. Of course, they dropped a ton of the secondary from last year, with the exception of Paulson Adebo. You can still argue that the corners they lost this offseason weren't really all that good to begin with, whether it be Deontay Banks, whether it be Cordell Flott. Those guys contributed to a defense that was in the bottom half of the NFL entirely, especially when it came to passing yards allowed per game. So you have to find a bunch of creative ways to get your hands on other talent. Your front seven is fine, and you did add Tremaine Edmonds. When it comes to corners, in terms of free agency, they were a little difficult to come by, and you didn't have a ton of names there that wowed you, for one, and also on their end, you're not going to find many people willing to commit to be a New York Giant in this day and age, if they had any control over it. Colton Hood's a guy who can come right in and serve alongside the already previously drafted Arvell Reese is just key contributors from day one to at least put this defense on the path to rejuvenate themselves and become a more feared unit next season. At least just do enough to stay in a game instead of getting blown out and shredded all over the field. Hood has that lockdown potential, so I can understand why they take a chance on him. I also tremendously like these back-to-back picks here for the Browns and the Chiefs at number 39 and number 40 overall. For the Browns to get both KC Concepcion Jr. in the first round, as well as Denzel Boston with this 39th overall pick in the second round, I found that pretty smart. Say what you want about Denzel Boston and his just stiff running style, boring qualities as a wide receiver. The production, in a way, for him at Washington does speak for itself a little bit. And with where the Browns have been at for the past few years, when it comes to their wide receiver core, to have the explosive nature of Concepcion Jr. combined with Boston's stability and sure-handedness at that position, that isn't a bad combination for a team that is really, at least with what we know now, is trying to get the most out of a promising offense. In theory, bringing in an offensive-minded guy like Todd Monken, having him already co-sign on Shedeur Sanders' behalf, you're trying to surround him with a good amount of weapons here and some quality assets to distribute the ball to. And to go young is not a terrible idea for Cleveland at this point. So I can accept that. Same for the Chiefs as well. They have gone up to this point heavily defensive-minded. You go Delan and Woods, the D tackle from Clemson in the first round, and then they steal R. Mason Thomas, the edge rusher from Oklahoma. The terror of a force that he is on that defensive line. It's interesting. You've still had a number of edge rushers get selected before and after him, and yet to me, R. Mason Thomas is one of the standout players in this class. And the Chiefs are just able to get a handle on him for free. He been at Oklahoma. He was a senior last year, and he just wrecked the game, including a performance where he was one of the many contributors on that team to a record-setting day versus Auburn in terms of sacks in their school history. You're not asking him to come in right away and, with already having George Karlaftis, he's going to be their primary edge rusher. You're not expecting that from R. Mason Thomas. I get the feeling that he can come right in and serve as a great complementary piece and just add yet another layer to a defense under Spagnuolo that is looking, in a way, to re-emphasize and reassert themselves this season. Their overall output last year seemed to be pretty abnormal in some ways for how it has looked through this Chiefs dynasty stretch. Yet, that is that sweet spot, and it is what kept the Chiefs in these games to where they were consistently coming down to a single score and not losing. So to add that in this draft is pretty ideal for them. I could see where they're coming from with that. Also highlight Jacob Rodriguez, the Texas Tech linebacker, going to Miami. Pair him up immediately alongside Jordan Brooks, who's ascended last season as a primary linebacker for this team. And the Dolphins, the Dolphins will still have more to do outside of this. He's already set. 4-year starter at this Red Raiders program, getting some form of Heisman buzz last season with the way that he had been playing. It all lines up for Miami right now. It wouldn't be surprising to see him take on that middle linebacker role. He was already feeling that responsibility at Texas Tech. And with a defense looking for that new leader and that team captain to rally around, I feel like Rodriguez could serve that role just a little bit. For a couple of other moves here, I did find a little interest in Jeremy Bernard from Alabama getting drafted by the Steelers here. Somebody, when I was watching, other reactions to this, they mentioned that Bernard could fill out a good role as a receiver out of the backfield in some instances. There could be something to that. I don't want to blow the whistle on it, though. I'm not going to lie. Still, I find that as a tertiary option, I can really get with that, to be honest with you. I could see where the Steelers are coming from with this. But an even better story is the Falcons getting Avion Terrell with the 48th overall pick in the draft, pairing him up right alongside A.J. Terrell Jr., that is. Both of them came from Clemson. Avion is obviously the younger brother in this equation. And that's truly a full circle thing. Now, both of them are different archetypes. I would still expect Avion Terrell to play in the slot. And this pickup fills a couple of those voids. One, obviously, you knock out the goal of having him play alongside his brother in real time and get to have him coach him up a little bit, show him the ropes around the NFL. As well as obviously be there to support him. It doesn't get much better than that. That's the main thing. On the other end, with them losing some of their corners, including D. Alford, through this offseason, who is now a Buffalo Bill in his own respect, that was a large gap in the middle of that defense. Avion Terrell is still going to struggle a little bit when it comes to playing outside. But if he's drawing those matchups against those receivers in his own territory, he will be able to find a little bit of success there. And I'm sure that the Falcons will do everything in their power to put him in the best possible positions for the most favorable matchups in these games. They are going to have to monitor as well, because Terrell also got injured at a point during the pre-draft process. So they'll want to make sure that he is ready to go and fully healthy for the regular season. Once he gets out there, that is going to be something truly special for those two. I can tell you that right now. With the 50th overall pick, the Jets also went in a similar direction, and they drafted D'Angelo Pons from Indiana. No complaints about this whatsoever. This man, again, as short as he is, can jump out of the fucking gym and plays much bigger than what his size would suggest. So what? He's 5'8". Go look at what he did at Indiana all last season. Truly asserting himself as one of the better corners in the nation, point blank, period. That size is always going to work against him. But that mindset that he possesses as a player is something that, honestly, you can't teach. And the Jets need more players like that. Frankly, they need way more players than this who can fit that kind of mold. The Jets, obviously, they've been so shit for years, mired in that realm of just being a complete and total dumpster fire. And you could argue that one of the reasons for it is that you're not getting players who are truly establishing a culture or willing to do so. There are some who occasionally do, but then they're always shut down by a toxic locker room and just terrible front office presence. and operation to where there's no other way to last on the team but to just lie down and accept what's happening. And that kind of standard is just complete and total bullshit. It has sunk this New York Jets team for so long. So one of the ways to correct that is to start getting some absolute dogs. It's not necessarily the prototype of corner. At the same time, this is a player that Aaron Glenn would love to have in his locker room. Because at that point, if Pons is going to continue carrying himself in this way, it's an extension of his own voice on the field. You can't ask for an easier job than that. You know what kind of good that does? When you can take the burden a little bit off of a head coach. Especially as Aaron Glenn is going into his second season. That means everything. And so I'd really watch to see how they look to incorporate Pons in this entire scheme throughout the offseason, and even, at the start of the regular season. They'll try to move him around. They will have to be creative because teams will pick on his size. Could be at their own discretion. It could be worth it depending on the matchup that they draw. But the battle with Pons is not going to be easy. All right. Another string of back-to-back picks here. At the 53rd overall pick, the Colts got C.J. Allen from Georgia. My delusional ass thought he was going in the first round. Clearly, that was a big swing and a miss on my end, considering every single person that's gotten taken off the board before him. The way I see it, with the Colts losing out on Zaire Franklin this offseason, you can't worry so much in their eyes about perfectly replacing Zaire Franklin. Because his tackling ability is incredibly elite. You're always going to find linebackers who can do that. They're taking a chance on C.J. Allen and his athletic upside, in a way. You want a guy that's a bit rangy, that can move all over the field a little bit better. And Allen, being from Georgia, having that bloodline of front seven players to come through that system, especially over the past few years, it puts in a good reputation for him. And that's before you even get into just how good of a prospect he was coming out of college. Now, there were injury issues that derailed his stock just a little bit. This is kind of a steal for them. Of course, this Colts pick is one of them. They got back in the Michael Pittman Jr. trade. So only time will tell if they are winners in this entire thing. In terms of just getting a player out there who you can start to carve out a piece of this defense around, then, they've already won part of the battle. It's just about making sure he goes out and produces while mastering these schemes a little bit better. It's going to be too early to tell. So we'll see how that ends up going. The Eagles, still with Dallas Goedert for this year, would be feeling a little frisky. They took Eli Stowers at the 54th overall pick. Man, I love this. And here I was thinking, they were going to get Kenyon Sadiq. Didn't have to. Stowers is pretty much on the same par as an elite tight end, halfback, fullback prospect in this entire cycle. This man is 6'3", and has the kind of speed on him like that to make those plays down the field with that large catch radius, holy shit. Seeing this man at Vanderbilt at times last season, and I'm like, how the fuck do you even guard that? It's insane. I don't know how he'd be incorporated into the offense in year one. Most of those reps are still going to go to Dallas Goedert. But the way that his playing style is, Stowers can at least take some time to learn from him a little bit. If there's one thing about Dallas Goedert, he is an absolute red zone threat. Stowers could most certainly learn from that kind of ability there. Even as they're saying here, he's not going to be much of a blocker for you. He is a vertical threat in every sense of the word. And I can see the Eagles really, especially if things go a certain way, maximizing on that ability to push the ball down the field, throw it up to him and just have him go get the fucking ball. You're not going to find many people who can compete with that on a week-to-week basis. He doesn't even have to be a truly dominant tight end. You could argue that he, although he's a much better catcher of the football than Evan Ingram was coming out of college. You look at how productive Evan Ingram's been over the past few years, that's probably the model for Stowers. Just a little bit. Especially with how they typically feed Dallas Goedert. You have potential to do way more in time with Stowers from a much longer distance. That is a scary thing. So again, it's not like many people can compete with that. Well, unless you're the Browns taking a chance on Emmanuel Mcneil-Warren, the safety out of Toledo. Another player who, by the nature of the draft, slipped further and further and further down until he was out of the first round. I don't know how the hell he got all the way to 58. That is crazy. That's crazy. It's crazy, man. Goodness gracious. I mean, dude, like, that's going to be wild. It's going to be insane. His size at the safety position and his ability to just blow up plays, especially as a run stopper right now. Of course, with different things that I've seen, they've been talking about how he's okay in coverage, but he'll lose these battles at the top of the routes and be caught out of position down the field, or he won't always make the smart play, relying more on his tangible aspects to recover and then proceed to make the play. Those could be issues in the NFL, where you have to have that balance of the on-field speed and the IQ to dissect what is happening in real time to make an impact, especially on the defensive end. Like, you have to be in the right spot at the right time. Mostly. Of course, you can always step out and make the improvisational play. But that's what most people are going to look for. You have to be able to, if we're going to run this scheme, you have to know where your place is in it. And if you don't, everything else just is a complete and total waste. There's something to the hyphenated names. Of course, we still don't know what's going on with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah because there is an apparent danger that he could retire due to the severity of an existing neck injury of his. But the track record for some of the most recent defenders in this Browns system through the draft over the last few years has been pretty good, especially with them getting Carson Schlesinger in the second round, early in the second round last year, and proceeding to have him put together a Defensive Rookie of the Year caliber season and win the entire damn thing. So they're looking to pass that on as they just bolster their defense as well. Trust me, the Browns over the past few years, especially with Myles Garrett on that end, has not been the issue for Cleveland. It just hasn't been. And they're adding to this with even more talent. You know they're going to do their job. Can they make a complete team? That is the question we are asking ourselves now. The Titans would get Anthony Hill Jr. with the 60th overall pick, the linebacker out of Texas, which is actually pretty smart, considering that compared to some of the other linebackers to come through their system, he actually has the build of a true linebacker and can play out in space pretty well. Was able to catch a few Texas games over the past couple years. He is most certainly solid. He's not, again, expected to blow them away completely, especially with them spending a second round pick on him. But they think that they're in pretty good hands taking a chance on him now. He's got the frame for it. He's got the skill, seemingly, to play that position well. It's just about how it translates in the National Football League. Robert Saleh knows a thing or two about getting linebackers of this kind. And with him being more of a defensive-minded coach, you already know he's going to focus a lot of attention on making sure that Hill Jr. operates the right way and gets as much out of these lessons as possible. The Bills, after the Rams took Max Clare from the Ohio State, the tight end, the Bills spent their 62nd overall pick on Davison Igbinosun, the corner from the Ohio State. You see, as I just said, you're not expecting much per usual from your later round picks here. With as much Ohio State games as I have watched over the past few years, with him on the team specifically, here is what I can say about him. This pick is going to materialize for them as something that they will look back on in 5 years as a good thing when Davison Igbinosun becomes an elite level starting corner, either as a number 1 or number 2 in the NFL for their team, or they will look at this with regret in the next 2 years with him being off of the team entirely. That seems very extreme to say. There isn't much in between when it comes to him. In the last 2 years he had at Ohio State tell you everything you need to know. This man in 2024 was a walking automatic first down with how undisciplined he was in coverage. Like, there would be times where the ball was overthrown and he'd still, because he got beat off the release so terribly bad, he still made a conscious effort to try to get himself back in the play with a little embellishment, and he was penalized for it. And this was several times in 2024 across several games. Even with higher stakes on the line, it still didn't matter. You could pencil him in for at least a penalty a game. That's how bad it was in 2024. In 2025, he turned that nature around a little bit. And the team as a whole is still very strong defensively. So being part of one of the stronger defenses in the entire nation helps immensely for Ibn Azim. He more than pulled his weight, though. The penalties were far less frequent than they once were. Happened every now and then. Some of them were bogus, I'll admit. He was a monster in terms of picking up deflections in space and jamming up receivers at the point of attack. And so you get that from the 2024 year to the 2025 year that shows progress. It really comes down to which version of Ibn Azim are you going to get and hone into moving forward. He is either going to be a liability on this defensive unit, or he's going to emerge as one of their strongest cornerbacks in a long time. And this is a team that has had Stephon Gilmore. This is a team that has had Tre'Davious White in the past decade. I don't have to say that Ibn Azim will reach exactly that territory, but it's most certainly possible if he can control his movement on the defensive end of the ball. And then with a 32nd pick, or 64th overall pick, to end off the second round, the Seahawks got Bud Clark from TCU, a man who was labeled as a ball hawk for that school. Is currently all-time one of their more prolific players in regards to interceptions acquired throughout his career. He's 6'1", essentially. I'll round up. They say 6'7" Dude, he's 6'1". He already came out and said that he was looking at Cam Chancellor, and he's like, oh, that's a model that I want to follow as a safety. I already like the sound of that. He'd already been labeled as a thumper, and trust me, he has some hard hits with some of what I was seeing from these TCU games that I watched even last year. He's got that. He can cover very well all over the field. And that versatility with the way that the Seahawks deploy all their defensive backs over the field, it's a perfect match. I was thinking that they would go more with a corner here, considering that it is Devin Witherspoon and Josh Jobe right now, along with them getting Noah Igbenogany in the offseason. This is one that I wasn't complaining about at all, though. I'd already mocked it. Hey, if Mcneil-Warren fell down to the Seahawks pick, that is another player that they could take. And I get the feeling that Schneider was probably thinking about this. The thing is, of course, with the Browns taking him off the board at 58, it's like, what are you going to do with it? There's not much that can be done about that. So you have to go with the next best option. And this has been a very interesting class for safeties in general, especially when you look at what had been going on with all the Arizona safeties. I mean, I was watching that game too, where they played in the Holiday Bowl against BYU. Dude, the amount of people I'm thinking are corners, whole time, they're just filling up their defensive roster with safety. It's like, damn. Are they truly a corner by nature, or are they a safety? I don't know what was going on there. But, hey, it got them some buzz in this draft. Nevertheless, the Seahawks getting their hands on Bud Clark just gives them another truly world-class talent to deploy in this defensive scheme. Can't complain about that at all. Even with them losing Kobe Bryant to the Bears. You're not missing a beat. But moving on to the third round. And So, I don't know what it is with these NFC West teams, man. Because if it wasn't already bad enough that the Rams decided to take Todd Simpson with a 13th overall pick, these fucking Cardinals fucked around and drafted Carson Beck. Do I need to say any more than that? What in the hell made them think that drafting Carson Beck was a good idea? There were still several other needs on this team that they needed to fill. There were still some solid edge rushers on the board. They were probably in need of a linebacker, considering everything I've heard about Zaven Collins over the past few weeks. You could have gone in completely different directions, and you take old man Carson Beck. I literally could not believe that. I should have just burst out in complete and total laughter. Because it's like, dude, are you fucking serious? You have to be smoking something. I don't know what made them do this. It still doesn't make sense to me all these days later, but fuck it. Oh yeah, also call out. Hey, the Giants, interestingly enough, decided to take Malachi Fields, the wide receiver from Notre Dame, with the 74th overall pick in the 3rd round. Of course, they have Malik Neighbors already. They got Calvin Austin III in the offseason. They still have Darius Slayton there. So it's a pretty weird room from this position all across the board. And yet, they still get a man in Malachi Fields who can carve himself an immediate role in this team. One, with him already being a senior coming out of college and putting on the display of absolute mosses he did last year with Notre Dame and had been doing while originally being at Virginia in his college career. This man is a pure 50-50 possession style wide receiver. You combine that with Malik Neighbors' deep threat ability, and you make things a little intriguing here. Yeah, the Giants do also have Darnell Mooney as well. So again, very weird, very odd receiving core. You can slot Malachi Fields in as an instant red zone threat for this team. And you don't have to think twice about it. You really don't. Just throw him up a reasonable pass, and he will grab the fuck out of it. He is 6'4". So more often than not, as long as he makes sure that he's got soft hands, oh, he's going to be an automatic weapon for them. Just you wait. And then the Steelers, after another wide receiver, and Caleb Douglas was drafted by the Dolphins, would decide to take Drew Aller with a 76th overall pick in the draft, which I didn't think they were going to do so early, but I did call this shit. I've been saying this numerous times, that, hey, if you're in the Steelers' position, you may as well take a look at Drew Aller. I know. It sounds crazy with the kinds of stuff that I've been saying about Drew Aller from all the Penn State games that I covered in my college football recaps over this time. There is a method to the madness. You have to understand. The arm strength that Drew Aller possesses is incredibly insane. fucking out of this world type shit. No BS. He is as raw as it gets as a prospect, but the physical traits are there for this man. And he is only 21 years old. You're not having Aller come into this system right away for Aaron Rodgers and just get thrown into the fire. No. He can get a chance to sit out for a year and learn behind the Aaron Rodgers. A person who is far less mobile than Drew Aller, but had some of the same arm talent. Of course, Rodgers could throw it from every angle as well. Can't say that Aller is there yet, but these are things that he can pick up on as a backup quarterback in this system. The thing with Drew Aller, and what I constantly drag on him and former Penn State coach James Franklin for, is the fact that in those big games, despite his college numbers looking fine on the box score, you don't get the full story from that. Those big games against ranked opponents or in the college football playoff series even, especially when you look at the game against Notre Dame that sent the Fighting Irish to the national championship and how he threw a game-losing interception to Christian Gray on that one. In just a completely inexplicable manner. How this man in that game had negative passing yards to receivers. No, that is still a stat line that just will haunt Nittany Lions fans forever. And you're never going to live that shit down. Negative net passing yards to receivers in that game. Dead serious. He has historically not shown up in these crucial games where you're facing off against stronger top 10, top 5, top 3 ranked opponents. It just hasn't happened for him. That instability does make things a bit risky on Aller's end. Because all these chances are fair, but at the same time, he is literally, and with him having the ball in his hands, it's the case anyways, you can't be sure of whether or not he's going to win or lose you a ball game. You want to have the utmost confidence in your quarterback that he can go out there and get you a quality win in those big moments. That is something that Drew Aller can learn with time. And honestly, again, still sitting behind Aaron Rodgers, it's not something that he's going to be punished for immediately. No pressure for Aller throughout this time to really make that giant leap. Just absorb all of this a bit slowly and ease your way into this quarterback position. And you could be dealing with something incredibly interesting if you are Pittsburgh. I like the pickup. I really do. And it would be very interesting to see him take the field as a starter potentially next season. Of course, with the Steelers, and I was gonna save a lot of the other developments and stuff like that for a different time, they did just sign Aaron Rodgers to a UFA tender today worth around $10 million. So a lot of this hinges on whatever happens with Aaron Rodgers over the next couple of months. Is he actually going to recommit to the Steelers, or is he going to call it a career? Is he going to go to a different team? We have no idea about that right now. That his presence on the team is what makes or breaks this pick. As long as he's there, Aller has a true legend of the sport to mimic and learn from and take advice from in real time. That is incredibly invaluable for his development. Specifically, if he's not there, this could go several different ways. And I don't like the outcome of any of them in that regard. Credit to the Colts for also taking A.J. Hulsey with his 78th overall pick in this draft. He himself was also regarded as one of the stockier safeties in this class with a similar ability to just wreck the game. And with a completely injury-riddled and ineffective defensive backcourt who, especially when it comes to Charvarius Ward, and as they now try to move on from Kenny Moore II, some of those guys are a lot older. You aren't getting that much free agent traction, and so the best way you can supplement that is with talent through the draft. Now, Hulsey is going to come in as a bit of an older player, being a senior coming out of LSU this season. That's not a bad thing for him to be ready to go on day one and make an instant impact to this defense. They're banking on that. And with some of their lackluster safety play over the past few years, can't blame them. When one of the stronger safeties that you've had over the past few seasons, if you're the Colts, is Justin Blackmon, you could use an upgrade in the worst way. For back-to-back wide receivers here, the Falcons took Zachariah Branch with the 79th overall pick, which is very fitting considering that he is out of Georgia and was a junior there after transferring from USC the offseason prior. He is such a small, skinny wide receiver, but man, he is a fucking burner down the field. At least when he actually gets the chance to go down the field. This is a thing that the Falcons will have to be mindful of. And they may use him in the same way. The Bulldogs last season fell in too much love with giving him all these RPO plays over and over and over again. You don't want to get him leveled up over the middle. I understand that. He's got the game-breaking speed you would have to have in order to get down the field and make these kinds of plays. And they barely trusted him with that. That's going to have to change a little bit. Branch, with being more sure-handed out in space, instead of being so reliant just on his speed, is going to have to earn that right in time. And if he can at least do that for them firstly, they are already in pretty good hands. If he can capitalize on that primarily. And then for the Ravens, hey, they would take a hell of a chance here in a draft that, as I'd have to get to when I go through 4 and 7 as well, they got incredibly ballsy with taking their wide receivers here. For a team whose best at that position is a 5'9" Zay Flowers, of course, the notion of them looking and finally getting their hands on a number 1 caliber receiver who fits that frame has been the source of conversation for quite some time. And they've tried to find answers to that, whether it was picking up Rashad Bateman before Zay Flowers even got there. His injury issues and inconsistency have not gotten the job done. DeAndre Hopkins was brought on as a temporary option. Of course, he's a lot slower. He can't create that much separation. And that has also put the Ravens behind the 8 ball. So, I guess with all that in mind, one could question how serious they were about making a move for one. Until we get here, where they drafted Jacoby Lane, the wide receiver out of USC. Yes, that Jacoby Lane. The biggest thing about Lane is that one, well, he's 6'4", and he's a fucking athletic freak. A freak at that position. He has to round out his game when it comes to this sure-handedness, when it comes to the route running. But boy, oh my gosh, can he go up and high point the hell out of a fucking football? The amount of times last season you see Lane, whether it's against Oregon or whether it's against Notre Dame, just going up for these fucking crazy contested catches with defenders mothered all over him. And it doesn't even matter. Due to the concentration that he already possesses. With that specific skill, he's a fucking monster. And that's a good baseline to have if you are in his shoes. I mean, he still had a fairly productive season, despite not really being labeled as a true wide receiver. Think about that. He was able to get this far on his athletic talent alone. He has got to, if he wants to survive.
Sorry, is it okay?
Lane is also not a finished product at this point. As of the recording of this video, he is 21 and will be 22 on August 5th. Man, you know, you're not getting a sure thing right now, but I have to commend the Ravens for taking a swing at a receiver like this. Because if this shit pays off, oh my goodness, everybody in the fucking state is going to want their hands on a Jacoby Lane jersey. Every single person. With his ability alone to make the highlight plays. And similarly to a guy like Caleb Williams, who is now done what he's done in the league to start out, the highlight plays have worked out well for Caleb Williams, and it's why he's gotten this kind of praise. Now it's about doing the little things for Jacoby Lane, expanding his route tree, mastering other routes than just these go bowls, and truly becoming a pure NFL wide receiver in real time. That is the next step. As a Seahawks fan and Ohio State fan, when the Ravens got their hands on Benjamin Victor, this is the exact same conversation. Victor wasn't as good of a prospect compared to a guy like Jacoby Lane. But he got himself up there with the highlight reel catches that he made for the Buckeyes when he was there. And did not do anything in the NFL when he was taken by Baltimore. So there's a world in which that can happen too. It's the risk you take as well on a third round pick. A true boom or bust selection. Man, if they can do this, oh man, this could be crazy. I'm not gonna lie. For another wide receiver, the Panthers also selected Chris Brazzell II. Another guy from Tennessee, the wide receiver, just a burner, man. And he himself, at a smaller frame, still is just going up and making all of these contested catches in one-on-one situations. You fit much better if you're Brazzell II as one of the primary targets on a team desperately looking for a wide receiver. I'm not sure what the plan is with Carolina. because Tyrell McMillan has filled that out, and even Jalen Coker came on towards the tail end of the season as another option. I understand that Xavier Leggett's role has become a little more just polarizing in this offense with how his production has diminished a little bit over the last couple seasons and how inconsistent he's been as a wide receiver. I just don't know if you correct that by getting your hands on another crazy weapon like this. It can only help, but just how much? Really, I don't know if this was a desperate need for them to go out and get him specifically. If we're thinking about a different wide receiver who isn't going to command the ball that much this late, then we'd be talking. This man was one of the engines on that air raid attack for Tennessee last season. And they had to have it because of their poor rushing attack. So you're going to ask him to do that with two other capable wide receivers playing alongside him. And especially one who is projected to do more in McMillan. I'm just struggling to wrap my head around that one. Oh yeah, Steelers as well with the 85th overall pick. Getting Dalen Everett, the corner from Georgia, is an absolute steal as well. This man is a very solid player at the position. He's rugged. He is tough as fucking nails when it comes to how he gets down in coverage, especially for that Bulldogs unit. And it saved them in a few games last year. It truly did. You gotta, in their position, embrace the youth movement. Because you're the most expensive defense in the NFL. And you have a lot of these players as well being much older in age. They just had a lot of stopgaps. Like Dante Jackson was okay. Probably not a player you're building around long term. They had Darius Slade Jr. for a brief period of time. He barely played. Jalen Ramsey had to get moved out to safety to prolong his career. So you have to try to find a way to get younger and pure corners on your team. And Everett fits that mold to a T. So I truly like this pickup for them. And then, Patriots also did a pretty smart thing by getting their hands on Eli Raridan, the tight end out of Notre Dame. With how old, I can't say that Hunter Henry is extremely old, but his kind of production as a possession tight end with this Patriots team is on the verge of being done in no short order. He can obviously retain it for the next few years, but he's going to be on his way out of the NFL fairly soon. And if you're the Patriots there, also considering that they lost Austin Hooper as well, another backup for them, you want to try to see if you can make room for another receiving threat out of this position. And Raridan, hey man, my goodness. Now they're saying here that he can be a solid blocker as well, but this is a 6'6" tight end who can go out and snag with the best of them. If the goal is to refine his receiving game a little more, why wouldn't you want to have him take some time to play behind Hunter Henry and pick up those tools of the trade? That is a tremendous idea from their standpoint. And from from my position, cannot complain about that at all. Although I'm not too pressed with the Steelers getting their hands on this Iowa guard, Jennings Dunker, this man just looks too similar to Ryan Jensen, the former Ravens and Bucks center. And I just can't unsee it. Yes, he's got a very prevalent mullet on his head that has caught the NFL by storm since this draft process started. That is what it is. You know what they say about these Iowa linemen? The fact that he has had to deal with them just trying to establish themselves as a triple option threat of a team. You have the prowess of him being a run blocker. It's pretty easy to see where this is going. Like, man. For the Vikings here, they traded Jonathan Greenard to the Eagles in exchange for the 98th overall pick, which they used to select Jacoby Thomas, a safety from Miami, and also a 2027 third rounder. Then the Eagles instantly signed Greenard to a 4-year, $100 million contract extension with $50 million of those guaranteed. This was always a threat to happen. So it is kind of like a wow, they actually did it thing, especially when I first saw it break from Adam Schefter. But at the same time, through his initial reporting, it was already mentioned that this team was trying to get so far under the salary cap. And they were trying to create enough space for themselves to go out and make other moves in free agency and clear up their cap room for this upcoming season. They'd already made several moves to do that, including letting go of Javon Hargrave and Aaron Jones Sr. to start it out, restructuring TJ Hawkinson's deal, and a number of other moves to fulfill that specific need. And it left Greenard there, who, don't get me wrong, has been productive in a defense that has been consistently sneaky over the past few years, and was a part of that win-win deal that sent him to Minnesota in the first place, while the Texans got back Danielle Hunter. He can consistently generate pressure. I suppose, though, with him having just 3 sacks and 38 tackles last year, along with 12 quarterback hits, a massive down year, along with missing 5 games due to a variety of reasons, maybe they felt that he was a little bit expendable. I can believe that they tried to work things out with him a little bit and ultimately met a little bit of an impasse. The Eagles, though, even with that last year in mind, to get a cheaper pass rusher, and yes, it's only by $20 million. He could have still had Jalen Phillips, I suppose. Still, he's been slightly more durable. You know that he can produce at an elite level, and if he doesn't, you're not sweating it too much. You're only paying him half of this money guaranteed, and you also have a very deep pass rush of your own. There's a mutual benefit here because he himself can get that pressure on the outside, and if he struggles to, you have fucking Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis holding down the middle and sinking their teeth into the middle, the interior of these offensive lines on a week-to-week basis. Greenard doesn't even always have to perform at his best individually in order to create a good overall team defense that just swarms the quarterback ad nauseum and gives these coordinators on the offensive end and head coaches headaches. So the 98th overall pick, especially with them using it on a safety specifically, they're not sweating it all that much. I think it's a solid move, especially if Greenard is still out there and actively playing, and at least giving you solid production. Like that $25 million a year and less with guaranteed money, especially with how the market has now completely ballooned up after Will Anderson Jr.'s deal that saw him get $50 million per year on 3. That could be the going rate for an edge rusher of Greenard's kind now. Even if people were saying, that might be a little too much money. No, it's not. Like, hold on just a second. Not really. So yeah, that could be very interesting. I like that. And then with the 99th overall pick to round this out, the Seahawks would take one of the compensatory picks that they had baked in to their overall draft cycle and select Julian Neal, a corner from Arkansas. Now, with some of what I've heard of Julian Neal beforehand, I initially didn't really like the pick all that much. Then as I've sat with it over the past few days, I'm like, I can see where they're coming from. I can see it. You still have to live with the fact that you did lose Tariq Woolen in the offseason. But in your mind, you kept the better of the two corners by having Devin Witherspoon remain on the roster. And as we said, the eventual goal is to try to pay him a long-term extension as well. In the meantime, you are still in need of one on the opposite end. Because as good as Josh Jobe is, he cannot play on the outside. And we saw him specifically get beat out there time and time again in the regular season. Although he has the physical tools to battle through it, it's just not something you want to keep doing. Because those are disadvantageous situations and they pile up over time. Now, there were a multitude of ways to go here, and I was still thinking that, hey, by this time, another corner might have been on the board still. But with Julian Neal, he'd line up as a corner opposite him, standing at 6'2", a bit stronger, and able to do a nice job of sticking with wide receivers in short range. That's not something that I can totally complain about. They're saying here, as I'm looking at this, that fit and technical improvement would be essential for him to become a factor. And yeah, that could make sense in a way. Especially with this defense. Because you have to, still with all the versatility in mind, you want to have those two solid corners on the outside doing their job time and again. So you don't want to be in Neal's situation where you're just always caught out of the scheme and getting picked on. You have to be able to hold your own weight. Especially in an NFC West division that, when you look at the Rams and the Cardinals for that matter, are going to have at least two solid receivers who eat up most of the targets in each and every single game. You have to stay disciplined and do your job. So this, while again I wasn't that taken away by it, I'm content with it. And it does fill a position of need. As we'll allude to getting into the later rounds, this wouldn't be the only corner that they draft. So there are a number of different ways in which they could attack this issue. But for now, that will do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.